Welcome. Today's lesson is just a continuation from our last lesson where we actually took an equation in standard form, which is like this, and we converted it to slope-intercept form. And then this lesson, we're just going to go one step further and graph the equation. Just remember, slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b, where m is our slope, which I'm going to write as rise over run. So we always need to think of it as a fraction, even if it comes out to be an integer, rise over run. And the b value here is my y-intercept. I'm going to abbreviate that ynt for y-intercept. Now, the last lesson we learned how to do here. We're going to minus 8x from both sides, because what we want to do is we want to get the x term from the left side of the equation to the right side of the equation. Now we need to also remember that the negative 8x is not a like term with the negative 56. So I'm going to write this down here now. I am left with the negative 7y. So don't drop the minus sign in front of the 7y, but equals that negative 8x minus the 56. Now what we need to do is get rid of that negative 7 that I'm multiplying into the y here. So if I'm multiplying it, the way I undo it is I divide by negative 7, divide by negative 7. That's going to leave just the y on the left side, which is what we want. Now just remember to divide both terms. A negative 8 divided by negative 7 will be a positive 8 over 7, and that fraction doesn't reduce, times x. Now remember that x, just because it's on the top here, doesn't mean I can't put it behind, just as long as you don't put it underneath the fraction. And then a negative times a negative becomes a positive. 56 divided by 7 is 8. So that lets me know now that I have a y-intercept of 8. So I go on the y-axis to 8. My slope is 8/7. Now I can't go up 8 and write 7. So I'm going to go down 8 and left 7, making sure that I think of that little person going to the right, walking uphill. And I've graphed that equation. Right? So I'm going to just jump ahead here for a minute. And I'm going to do one here. This looks like it would be really nasty probably for some of you, but once we solve it, you're going to realize it's going to reduce and actually fit fairly well onto this graphing system. So again, the first step I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the x term from the left side of the equation to the right by minusing 27x, minusing 27x. Now again, that's not a like term with a 1080, so I'm left with 18y is equal to that negative 27x plus 1080. Now again, what we're going to do is we're going to divide by that 18 that's in front of the y. So when I divide by 18, and again, if you need to use a calculator, by all means, use a calculator. There's nothing wrong with using a calculator. But I wouldn't use the calculator on the slope, because 27 divided by 18 is going to give you a decimal if you use a calculator. I'm just going to reduce it, realizing that 27 and 18 are both divisible by 9. It's going to give me a slope of 3 over 2, or 3 halves, x. That's the 27 over 18. One was negative, one was positive, so it's negative. Now I'm going to get a positive y-intercept because I got a positive divided by a positive. This is the one where I might take my calculator and just divide. So 1080 divided by 18, and I'm using a calculator, makes it a little quicker, is 60. So that tells me that my y-intercept is 60. So again, my scaling system goes up to 60. So I have 60 on the y-axis. Now I'm going to go down 3 and over 2. And you might ask, how do I go down 3 and over 2 when the scaling's by tens? Well, I can go down 30 and over 20. That is the same ratio as 3 over 2. So realize that you need a ratio of 3 to 2. 3 squares down to 2 squares to the right. I'm going downhill because it's a negative slope. Excellent. So I'm going to skip ahead again, make sure we don't get anything more difficult than that. Again, nothing more difficult than that. Just remember that the slope has to have a ratio of whatever that ratio is. So let's do this last one. I'm going to do it a little bit faster. I'm going to leave the 5y on the left for the moment. I'm going to minus the 3x over. So I'm just not taking the time to write it underneath. Excuse me. We got 1,500. Now I'm going to divide by the 5 on both sides, remembering to divide both that and that by 5. So I get y equals a negative 3 over 5, because that's the negative 3 and the 5, x plus, and then 1,500 divided by 5 would be 300. So again, I have a y-intercept of 300 on the y-axis, and my slope is a ratio of 3 to 5. So even though you can't go down 3 little units and 5 over, I can go down 300 and over 500, and it's still that same ratio of 3 over 5, or the ratio of 3/5. So again, I just maybe even think about making that fraction as a 300 over 500. It's the same fraction. If you have any questions on how to do this, just bring them to class and I will help you more then.